Thank you for your kind introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity to present my research work concerning the sensory and molecular study of the wine aging bouquets. So, as everybody knows, the wine aroma results in multiple components, including specific floral and fruity notes through the direct contribution of grape-derived aroma compounds. Then, the occurrence of amylic and lactic notes during the fermentation process due to the presence of secondary microbial metabolites. Then, the development of toasty and aromatic notes during the barrel aging due to the extraction of woody compounds from the oak to the wine. And finally, during the bottle aging, the wine aroma evolution can be defective either by oxidative or reductive processes. But on the contrary, the development of a wine aging bouquet during the bottle storage defines the overall quality of fine wines. It denotes a set of aromas which together form the perceptive equilibrium analogous to a complex perfume. So the wine aging bouquet accounts among the most fascinating but least known sensory concepts in enology. Consequently, the lack of established data raised the question to define the methodology for characterizing it from a sensory standpoint, from a molecular point of view, and finally from a terroir perspective. So accordingly, the experimental design of the study consisted into three main parts. Firstly, define the sensory typicality of the wine aging bouquet using both conceptual and perceptual tools. Then, identify the molecular markers responsible for the key aromatic notes of this typicality. And finally, evaluate the direct impact of the terroir on both its expression and the development of the wine aging bouquet. So a first holistic approach was used to provide a sensory definition of the wine aging bouquets. More precisely, a large set of wine professionals were invited to answer a questionnaire, and more precisely to the following question: what does aging bouquet mean to you in red Bordeaux wine? So the lexical field generated through these three association tasks revealed that the conceptualization of the wine aging bouquet involves a wide variety of quality dimensions related to the notion of grit perfume, but also the absence of off odors such as oxidative notes. Moreover, intrinsic attributes such as balance, complexity, positive wine aging evolution, as well as sensory properties played also a key role. Interestingly, the dimension of terroir was also highlighted with the terms such as grit Cabernet Sauvignon or hot and dry climate. And finally, several technical aspects were also elicited, and more precisely, the careful monitoring of oxygen during both the bottle aging and the wine testing. Then, 30 red Bordeaux wines from 1994 to 2005 were assessed by 13 wine professionals. So these professionals were firstly invited to perform a typicality task, and in other words, to answer this question. For each tested wine, do you think it is a good or poor example for illustrating to someone the wine aging bouquet concept? So they answered using this kind of unstructured scale, ranged from a poor example on the left and good example on the right. And consequently, they attributed for each tested wine a typicality score. At the end of this task, they selected the ones that they considered as the most representative of the wine aging bouquet concept. And during the last step of the sensory session, they were invited to freely express an aromatic definition of the most typical wines. So based on the frequency citation method, a global picture, we highlighted a global picture of a sensory definition of the aging bouquet of red Bordeaux wines, and more precisely, we highlighted that this olfactory representation was structured around 7 main aromatic descriptors shared by at least 50% of the panel, and including ambergris, truffle, toasted, licorice, mint, spicy, and fresh red and blackberry fruit notes. Interestingly, this sensory core was also easily modulated by the presence of woody and aromatic notes, which highlighted the key role played by the barrel aging in the aromatic expression of the wine aging bouquets. Then, to adequately address the role of volatile compounds in this aromatic expression, further information combining both knowledge on their chemical structure and their sensory properties is required. Consequently, a first targeted approach was adopted, focusing on 54 aroma compounds formed during the bottle aging and under reducing conditions, and also related with the sensory space previously defined. Accordingly, we investigate the key role played by some woody compounds, several aromatic heterocycles characterized by toasted and nutty notes, some terpenes and oryzoprenoids which confer to wine a freshness character, and finally, several sulfur compounds which positively contributed to the wine aroma, such as polyfunctional thiols and dimethyl sulfide. So all of these compounds were quantified in wines previously tested during the sensory session and considered as a good or poor example of the wine aging bouquet concept. So both sensory and chemical data were analyzed using a partially squared statistical analysis, and the results revealed the relevant impact of several sulfur compounds, and more precisely the key role played by dimethyl sulfide, 2,4-methanathiol, and 3-sulfanyl hexanol, with significant higher concentrations found for these compounds in wines with an aging bouquet compared to atypical ones. However, as the wine aroma results in a complex mixture of odorants, the identification of new molecules remains quite difficult. Consequently, the wine aroma fractionation and the reconstitution experiments represent a significant breakthrough in the flavor research, providing by a simplification of the wine matrix an easier identification of molecular markers. Consequently, a fractionation process was applied on several wine extracts, and among the 25 aromatic fractions obtained, 2 of them were selected because the initial aromatic complexity of the wines was reflected. Then, several omission and substitution tests revealed the significant impact of these fractions on the overall aroma perceptions, and more precisely on the intensity of the mint aroma. Then, GC olfactometry and GCMS analysis targeted on these both fractions revealed the presence of piperitone, a monoterpene ketone associated with freshness and mint characters. So finally, piperitone was quantified in wines with and without an aging bouquet, and results indicated that this compound was found at significant higher concentration in typical wines, which highlighted for the first time the contribution of piperitone to the positive mint nuances of the wine aging bouquet. Piperitone is known to be a limonene secondary metabolite. However, even if the limonene biotransformation pathway was largely studied in peppermint spaces, it was not previously studied in depth in Vitis vinifera, and only few aroma compounds related to this pathway were described in wine. Consequently, we decided to investigate the presence of other aromatic interesting monoterpene derivatives in wine, and paramental lactones constituted an interesting group of aroma compounds known for their powerful mint olfactory properties. So, using the same multi-step approach that previously described and combining fractionation, GCO and GCMS analysis, we were able to identify for the first time in wine the presence of 3 paramental lactones, and more precisely, the mentofuractone, mint lactone, and isomint lactone, all of them found in wine at nanogram per liter concentration range. From a sensory standpoint, these molecules contribute to coconut, freshness, and mint characters, and the individual threshold levels were determined at about 50 nanogram per liter and 25 microgram per liter for mentofuractone and mint lactones respectively. But moreover, interesting results were observed in mixture when mint lactants were supplemented with menthoprorectants at concentrations close to those found in wine, and this produced a similar perception of mint and freshness character than mint lactants considered alone at higher suprathreshold levels. So consequently, these results indicated that paramenthal lactants contributed to the freshness and mint characters of wine through perceptual blending phenomenon. Concerning the oenological dimension of this research project, everybody knows that the Bordeaux region was naturally divided by the Gironde estuary into a left and a right bank areas. These two areas are characterized by a distinctive terroir where the plurality of soil and grapes provide specific wine signatures. While red Bordeaux wines are product of several monovarietal-based wines, it is already known that left bank wines are dominated in the finer blends by Cabernet Sauvignon, whereas right bank wines focus more on Merlot grapes. Moreover, as the dimension of terroir was elicited in the conceptualization of the wine aging bouquets by wine professionals, we wondered if it exists an influence of geographical origin within the Bordeaux region on both the mint aroma and the piperiton profile in red Bordeaux wines. Consequently, both mint aroma and piperiton were quantified in a large set of left and right bank wines, and results revealed that significant higher intensities of mint aroma as well as significant higher concentration of piperiton were found in left bank wines. So, as the varietal origin of piperiton is advanced, we wondered if it exists a specific profile of piperiton depending on the nature of grape variety. So, this figure represents the piperiton concentrations in red Bordeaux wines classified according to the proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon in their finer blends. As you can see, a positive correlation was found between the piperiton levels and the proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon, with significant higher concentration of piperiton found in wines with more 50% of Cabernet Sauvignon. So these results indicated a specific varietal effect on the piperiton profiling in red Bordeaux wines. Moreover, to investigate a possible vintage effect on the development of the wine aging bouquet, a large set of red Bordeaux wines were subjected to both sensory and a molecular analysis targeted on the 4 molecular markers of the wine aging bouquet previously defined. So this figure represents the results obtained for the centimillion series. And as you can see, both typicality scores and chemical concentration did not follow a linear curves with one age, but specific vintages presented both higher typicality scores and molecular concentrations. So unsurprisingly, these results indicated a vintage specificity and suppose that other parameters of the terroir could directly impact the development of the wine aging bouquets. Among the various parameters of the terroir, which positively influencing the grape quality, the role played by the vine water status has already been emphasized. And more precisely, it has already been shown that vintage with water deficit permitted to produce a significant higher concentration of sugar as well as higher content of aromatic precursors in grapes to finally improve the wine quality. So, to evaluate the role played by the vine water status on the development of the wine aging bouquet, we use an original approach based on the carbon isotope discrimination, usually called as delta C13. So, with this strategy, we determined directly in aged wines the ratio between the carbon-13 and the carbon-12. And this indicator appeared as relevant to tracing back the water history of vines from wines originated, and consequently evaluate the role played by the vine water object conditions on the development of the wine aging bouquet typicality in aged wines after several years of the bottle storage. So a large set of red Bordeaux wines were subjected to both sensory analysis and delta C13 measurements, and to evaluate the correlation between the sensory data and the vine water status. And as you can see on the correlation circles issued from the principal component analysis, a correlation was found between the moderate to severe vine water deficit and the sensory data, as significant higher values of delta C13 were found in wines with an aging bouquet, which also presented significant higher intensities of truffle and meat notes, and in a lesser extent on the growth notes. So, in conclusion, this study provides new information concerning the sensory and the molecular deciphering of the wine aging bouquets. More precisely, using firstly both knowledge and experience of wine professionals, we demonstrated that there were consensual on a sensory definition of the wine aging bouquet, which was structured around 7 main aromatic descriptors. Then, combining both targeted and non-targeted molecular approaches, we highlighted the key role played by some sulfur aroma compounds, as well as the contribution of piperitone to the positive meat nuances perceived in the wine aging bouquets. However, concerning the recent identification of several paraments and lactons in wine, further investigations are required to precise their role in the aromatic expression of this typicality. From an analogical point of view, we provide new insights concerning the geographical origin within the Bordeaux region, with significant higher intensities of mint aroma, as well as higher concentration of piperitone found in wines from the left bank area, where the Cabernet Sauvignon was dominated in the final blends. Finally, we also highlighted the key role played by the vine water status, and we demonstrated that water deficit impacted positively on the wine aging bouquet expression, and more precisely on its truffle and meat notes. But, however, further investigations are required to precise the role played by the terroir on the molecular dimension of the aging bouquet, and more precisely with a focus on the limonene biotransformation for the meat compounds and on DMS precursors for the truffle notes. So I would like to thank again the Enopia Scientific Committee, the financial support of the research project, le Conseil interprofessionnel du vin de Bordeaux, France Agrimaire et la région d'Aquitaine, some chateaux of the Bordeaux area who kindly provided the wine samples, of the wine professionals who kindly conducted the sensory analysis, le Service commun des laboratoires for delta C13 measurements in wine, and finally all the contributors of this research project, and with special thanks to my PhD and postdoctoral director, Dr. Stéphanie Marchand, the head of my laboratory, Professor Gilles, and finally all members of my lab team. And I thank you for your attention.